two, one. Being 7:03 p.m. on February 27th, 2018, this will be the beginning of the monthly February Historical Commission meeting. And all members have in front of them a copy of the minutes from last meeting, which was, bear with me, someone can cut me off and tell me when it is. Thank you. So if you guys could just take a look at those.
I can make a motion to accept minutes.
You read those? Okay.
Second.
All right, motion on the floor. Motion to accept the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the minutes? Don't agree? All right. Thank you. Excellent. We'll submit those. Being no public in the room, there'll be no forum and no hearings. So board business, open discussions. Was there anything, I know you want to address something, but we'll wait till the end on that.
Correct.
Trying to think. Any open discussion that you have, Paul? Michelle? Wally?
No.
So, I did have a little contact with Jen Hager in regards to our last meeting. There was conversation, I believe it was by Wally, if I can find my notes. I believe it was for the Sutton Center Overlay District. Was that, did I say that right? And you had brought up something about that. So I just looked into it a little bit more. I guess someone wanted Helen Ordung's house for possible dentist office or some sort of smaller business like that. And because it was outside the district, it wasn't allowed. But I think I'm gonna sit with Jen. We'll just go over a couple things just so I have a good clarification of it. I understand what it is, but maybe, discuss a little more just to protect everybody's interest in the future there, to make sure everybody's aware. Maybe we'll make a pamphlet for somebody that has an interest of bringing some business in the center of town. What's allowed, where it's allowed, what's not at this point. So I did kind of look into it. I know I kind of tabled it pretty quick for you last month, but I thought it was a little premature until I had a little more info. So do you have any comment on that now, or on
No,
the?
I think it's probably is the way to go. I think making a pamphlet and giving people a general idea what is expected and what you have to do up front.
Yeah.
Just prevents a lot of problems with them later on when they discover that, oh, well, we have to do this and we have to do that and so forth and so on. It gets rid of a lot of confusion and it should be helpful in their overall goals of getting a business.
Well, I think the meat and potatoes building is obviously the Beehive. What is it, 314 Boston Road or something?
Yeah. That's
Okay, so. Okay, any other information that anyone has for that? All right. I don't have any open discussion or updates. Old business. Wow, this is easy, huh? Okay, I have some old business. Our old business is new business. That was old business before. It's kind of like red fish, blue fish. We received an envelope from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Mass Historic Commission on February 20th. Approximately 7 days ago, it was mailed out. So we just got it the other day. I checked the box, it wasn't in there, Wally, but excuse me, if I may, I'd like to read this for anybody that's watching at home. It's addressed to the Sutton Historical Commission Chair. The Mass Historic Commission is pleased to inform you that the Manchaug Village Historic District in Sutton was accepted by the National Park Service and the Department of Interior for listing in the National Register of Historic Places on January 26, 2018. Encloses a certificate recognizing the designation of that district in the National Register of Historic Places. For your information and explanation, the Register of Historic Places is enclosed. If you have any questions or wish further information, please do not hesitate to contact Mass Historic Commission. It's signed by Secretary of Commonwealth William Galvin and Brona Simeon, the Executive Director of State Historic Preservation Office. And it went to the Board of Selectmen, Kathy Broomer, the consultant that was hired, Jen Hager, and Scott Paul, the chair of the Sutton Planning Board. So with that letter read, we get a nice certificate from the state with a seal on it that recognizes the historic significance of Manchog Village. And I believe, after discussions with Jen, they're going to make copies for this for every resident in that district. And they're gonna send them out to them with a letter of appreciation. If anybody in that area or in that district or anywhere else in town has questions regarding this, certainly contact one of the members here, myself, and we'll be happy to update you. It doesn't make you have to paint your house a certain way, but there is some protections, believe it or not, in case there's some changes. They need to widen the road, dig up sidewalks. It all has to go through a process now through the state that makes sure that there's minimal impact on that historic district. So congratulations, because of all the meetings I've been to for the different districts and villages, and that was a pretty good one. I like the people down there. I was supposed to meet with this guy, and I never did it, but I want to go and poke around out back to some of the old cemetery graves up in the top of the hill there. So we got a nice little packet, and if there's no objection from the other members, I think what I'm gonna do is just forward this whole packet to Jen so that they may have the original, including the original letter, so that it can be copied and sent off to the residents who are well-deserving of that instead of me. All right. So that was, how long has that been? Been over a year.
Oh, yeah, like 2 years.
2 or 3.
Oh, come on, don't say that, 3 years.
Yeah, from the time we got started, and remember we had to find a.
Well, we're gonna pretend it was only a few years. We don't wanna,
Whatever.
we're gonna do this. This is,
The Valley too get that designation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we went in there last June, wasn't it? Something
Yeah,
like,
a year ago, June.
yeah, that was I'd say it's a good 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, from the time it was started.
Yeah.
Worked good.
The meeting at the senior center.
okay, so I'm gonna leave this for Jen to work with our minutes from this meeting, or from last meeting. Bear with me. Okay. Sorry, I'm being secretary here. Any old business, any other old business? I know I asked, but does that touch on anything else that might remind somebody of something? No, okay. New business. I just want to mention, and if I can find it here, I didn't mean to bring my phone. I think it's horrible to use at a meeting. However, there is a correspondence here that may have interest to people present. Let's see if I can find it. I believe there's a history, here it is, save the date. Mass History Conference. People's History and Local History, June 4th, 2018 in Worcester, with Mass Humanities and Massachusetts History. Promises to be another exciting year in Mass history. They're going to have a speaker, and I'm cutting this up pretty bad. A speaker on the growth and sharing of organizations in their communities, and the keynote speaker is Franklin Odo, founding director of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center. And he'll focus on bringing immigrant communities to museums and museums to immigrant communities. Also, there'll be opportunities and roles and historical organizations can play to become part of the social dialogue, program diversity, collaborative approaches to exhibit and program building, funding, common grounds between technology, art, and history to enrich all. So, I guess there's also a Mass Humanities grant deadline, and you have until April 23rd, 2018. Forms are due by April 9th with an application date of the 23rd of April. So if anyone's interested in going that, please, you can contact myself or I'm going to try hard here. Patricia Brutamesso of Mass History Conference Coordinator at Local History at masshumanities.org. Local History, at masshumanities.org. All right. Any other new business that anyone has? So, with that said, I know that there was a mention, Wally had asked for some airtime regarding a project that was that took place with Historical Society, First Church, and other members of the community in regards to our history of furniture making in Sutton.
Yes.
So, not many people know we have one of the most famous furniture makers in the United States that made furniture, and I believe, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure I'll be beat up, that his shop was on Singletary Ave at the corner of Wheelock.
You're absolutely correct.
So, with that said, if you can give us a few minutes, a 3 to 5 minute presentation on that, that would be
Sure.
great.
This book came out. It's called Crafting Excellence: The Furniture of Nathan Lombard and His Circle. And it's written by 3 individuals who are among the experts of what they call the American decorative scene, shall we say. One is Christy Jackson, who is now the curator of the Trustees of Reservations for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I met her 6 years ago when she was the curator at Sturbridge Village, and she wanted to put a show together with Nathan Lombard, about Nathan Lombard, and we worked on that with the Society and with First Church. Brock Job is the Professor Emeritus of Winterthur, which is the premier museum of American decorative arts. It's a 175-room house in Delaware owned by one of the DuPonts who set it up in the 1920s. And it's an amazing place. I mean, I've been there 2 or 3 times. I don't know if you've ever been down there.
Once, yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. The third individual is Clark Pierce, who is an advisor in American arts to collectors and institutions, and Clark resides up on the North Shore. So, okay. In working with this, now in reading the book, one of the things I found out, nobody really recognized Nathan Lombard and his craftsmanship until the late 1980s. Now keep in mind, this gentleman was making furniture in the house that Keith described in the early 1800s.
Federal period.
And there are a number of references to Sutton in this book. There's a whole chapter on the community in the early 1800s, what the way the whole community was organized in the church, and where Nathan's stature was. One of the examples is that he made a coffin for one of the ministers. The going rate was $5, and he got 14. And that was probably Reverend Mills. And Christy got all this information out of the records of the First Church. She is phenomenal. I've been with her at the archives of the society, and there'll be a stack of paper like this in a box in 15 minutes she found what she was looking for. I'm like, whoa, she's really tuned into all this. There are an incredible number of pictures, descriptions, and detail as to the furniture, and you can also see the relationship Nathan had with other furniture makers, similar styles. Just the way, when I have a close-up, or I'd show you some, more detail on this. But it's incredible because there are birds on these things. There's seeds and flowers.
Did a lot with eagles too, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He did eagles, and he did these flowers and everything that was embedded. And there were no power tools back then.
Yeah, all inlaid.
Everything is inlay. And just the whole look of all of this. On March the 7th, which is a week from Wednesday, at 11:45, I'm going to give a talk on this book at the Sutton Senior Center. Today was the day it was officially released to the public, and the cost of it is $65. However, if you're a member of Prime, you can get it for it's like $57 or something. $57.95. I also checked, and Barnes & Noble has it. Barnes & Noble have it, and I'm sure other booksellers have it as well. But the name of this is Crafting Excellence, the Furniture of Nathan Lombard and His Circle. And they did also at Sturbridge, and there was a number of pieces that had remained in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a photograph of his great-great-grandson, a gentleman by the name of Carl Briel, who recently, when I say recently, passed, I think 2 or 3 years ago, but he was at this, I met him at the Sturbridge event, and they had family pieces that had still remained in the family. There are pictures inside of the church of the pulpit and the Lombard window, and they also went inside the house. There's a picture of a mantle in this book. One quick story, and then I'll leave the rest of it. But the arrangements were made to take a picture of the pulpit at the church. Okay, first of all, it took 6 to 8 months to get the photographer up here. His name is Gavin Ashworth, and he is the consummate photographer for anyone called art objects, especially, you know much more about this than I do. If you want to go on the auction world or whatever, you want to really present this. So Gavin, we finally get him up here. He comes in here. He spends 3 hours taking a picture of that pulpit. I was just mind-boggled. I mean, there's lighting, there's computers, there's cameras, there's camera and all this business. But it's a superb picture. I mean, you get what you pay for. Right? I think it's comparable to, you can imagine what a photo shoot would be on the cover of Elle or Vogue or some magazine like that. And he's got a number of he's the photographer on a number of pieces in this book.
Right.
So I would heartily recommend it. And it is, I think as Keith said, an untold story of Sutton from 200 years ago, basically.
You know, when you think about the history, if you go over just his furniture, and it's funny you mentioned that he wasn't discovered till the 1980s, so they thought he was attributed to another furniture maker for the longest time. I don't remember which one was McIntyre ever mentioned. Oh, White. Okay, right. So that he was almost like a nobody until a few of his pieces were bought and sold and discovered, and then he started to come out of the woodwork. But my point is, when you think about this book comes out, and we're talking almost 200 years later, do they recognize him? And then you know of the Waters history from Sutton and the first United States Continental Armory powder-making facility was right here in Sutton for the United States. George Washington released the Waters, Asa and Andros Waters, to come back to Sutton to make muskets for the cause of the country. It's amazing how much history is just in this small town, and no one really knows it. So that's great. That's exciting. Thank you for sharing that.
Was there a gentleman named Blanchard?
Oh yeah. He invented the wood lathe to put in one pen, and he could turn hundreds of pens to match my pen with a wood lathe. So what he did was he made musket stocks. They used to carve them by hand. and he would put in his template, and this machine would carve musket stocks and spit them out. Excellent. Any comments on crafting excellence on Nathan Lombard? All right, I have one more quick thing on the announcements correspondence, is the report of the Historical Commission Annual Report for 2017, crafted by our clerk, Mark Kellogg. As usual, Mark always does a great job. He knows how to compact everything right in. It's an attendance sheet. It's our major accomplishments for the year. Though I don't think Manchog Village was accepted prior to this scribing of this memo, so that will certainly be in next year's, but good job, Mark, appreciate it. And there's copies for each member, and of course it'll be posted in the town report. Any comments on that? All right. Being 7:26, I think it is, it's hard to see from here.
24.
Okay, we're gonna cut that at 7:25 in case that's wrong. I have no other business for this meeting or the viewers at home or Mr. Cable Guy that wants to go. So, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion is to adjourn.
Seconded.
Adjourned.
30.
7:25, so you can cut that cable, my friend.